think that is contrary to what we need at the local level. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Wyatt Wallace.
My name is Wyatt Wallace. I live off Mountain Hill Road, Perryville, Maryland. County Executive Moore, President Hodge, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I must first say that it is so refreshing to be able to give public input to a new county government. County leadership that will potentially move Cecil County forward on so many issues, not just the tier map issue. Hopefully, stalemate and obstruction of the past will no longer be the rule. I have just one comment. Let us simply work together to create a map of compromise that meets the intent of the state law, yet adheres to our own Cecil County Comprehensive Plan. I ditto the Honorable Congressman Wayne Gilchrist's comments, and particularly those of my friend and colleague on the Planning Commission, Mr. Ken Wiggins. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Dan Durr.
Dan Durr, Spring Valley Farm, Conowingo, Maryland. I'll try to roll along here, but I'm joining in with many of my fellow rural land owners to object to the Maryland State Department of Planning Directive that land other than protected lands must be included in the state designated and highly restricted Tier 4 category. I have no problem with the concept of preserving farmlands and woodland, but there is a right way and a wrong way to accomplish this. During my vacation last August, I crossed paths with a Midwesterner who was involved in developing a local land use program. He told me that Maryland was used as an example of how not to do land use planning. Government has been quite quick to benefit chosen landowners with high density or other lucrative zoning uses. Therefore, a responsible government should be at least cooperative in continuing to honor methods such as transfer development rights, paid development rights, and voluntary donation development rights programs to compensate rural landowners for down zoning or the confiscation of property rights by the zoning process. I also worked on a comprehensive plan, and we did that according to Maryland State Department of Planning guidelines. Particular attention was given to delineating priority preservation areas which encompass a majority of the rural lands of the county. And I agree, the goals of the comprehensive plan and the Act 236 are quite similar, pretty much the same. But the methods to achieve these goals is about opposite ends of the spectrum. We're looking at confiscation versus compensation. Okay, the goals of the Maryland Sustainable Growth Act are to prevent urban sprawl and clean up the bay. And these are admirable goals, but the writers and enactors of this legislation fell into the trap of believing that the means, no matter how deceitful or unjust, justify the ends. Let's face the facts. The state of Maryland, along with many of its counties, for decades now, have established, maintained, and financed paid development rights programs, which have compensated rural landowners for selling development rights. There's no doubt in my mind that the Sustainable Growth Act is unconstitutional under the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. However, this act has been cleverly written so that the state does not perform the application process that uses pressure tactics to coerce the counties to do the dirty work. In conclusion, I would like to see the Maryland Department of Planning and the county work together. Hopefully, the Maryland Department of Planning can reconcile their inabilities to recognize property rights. And hopefully, county government can put some more teeth into transfer development rights programs. Meanwhile, I would like to recommend that the Cecil County government leave the Tier 4 map as it exists today, with the understanding that additional lands could be added as development easements are transferred, purchased, or donated. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
John Valinsky.
The old man's getting.
Okay, good evening. John Valinsky, 986 Irishtown Road, Northeast Maryland. Most of you remember I'm a small horse rancher, 37 acres. If you're keeping score, I'm against Senate Bill 236, plain and simple. If I had to write a book on this whole scenario, I would call it "The Governor Asks Too Much." And I don't say that lightly because I'm a real flag waver and I believe in government, but I think our government here is going too far. I did want to say thank you to Mrs. Grunwald. You're the only person tonight to mention that all these farmers went through several changes in zoning. But let me put it another way that gives you another perspective, because like I said before, I'm an old engineer, chemical engineer, and I believe in God we trust, everybody else bring data. So I've got some data for you. Up till 1993, the density on my farm and every NAR farm and every SAR farm was 1 house, 1 acre. Okay, so in my 37 acres, I could have built 37 houses, but I didn't. When you look at what happened in 1993, we changed it to 1 house, 5 acres with a bonus density of 1 and 3. So if I got the bonus density, like the development behind me that has 64 houses and 64 four-wheelers, paid political announcement, then, you know, it narrows me down now to about 12 houses. So I went from 37 to 12. The number itself doesn't impact me, but think about the reduction. That's a reduction of 67% of house potential. That definitely shrinks my farm value. Somewhere in the 2000s, we made another change. It was like early, I guess, 2000, 2005. We went to 1 and 10. So now all of a sudden, at 37 acres, I can build 3.7 houses, or if I do a minor subdivision, I can do 5. With 5, I now am 86% reduction in number of houses. All right, now they're proposing that we're going to go to 1 and 20. Now think of that farmer, 100 acres, 1 and 20, 5 houses. That's a 95% reduction for them. For me, it's 97 because I'm told, based on where I am in the area, I can't even do a minor subdivision. So there is impact in this, and it does affect people. Let's look at the property values. Every time you change that, you reduce that property value. That was even stated in a really great report written by some folks that are in this room tonight in November of '99 and presented to the commissioners by the Cecil County Agricultural and Farmland Protection Task Force. They said it definitely will reduce farm values, okay? And I say that for the effect of one of my environmental friends who said, John, when we change these densities, it doesn't affect your farm value. You're going to get the same money no matter what. Sorry, not buying that. I'm Polish, not foolish. In that report, they did make a good statement that said TDRs and PDRs are a good way to replace that value. Unfortunately, that's not open to the small farmer. If you're below 50, you don't get that opportunity. But the people above it can get it. Have we utilized that a lot? Probably not, because it takes a lot of capital to run those kind of programs. But there are programs that are in alignment with the 5th Amendment to the Constitution, which says if you remove personal property values from an individual in the United States, okay, you have to give them some compensation. Those programs satisfy that. This Senate Bill 236 does not. And that's why some people call it a land grab. And what else is it? Instead of coming in and working with them to purchase their rights, we come in and say, we're going to take them from you instead. And that's what turns people off. And I'm a military guy. It really turns me off because I know the sacrifice of my brothers and sisters who fought for that Constitution. We put up our hand and we said, we will protect the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And look what we got. We got a governor who's acting like a domestic enemy. It's not right. We've got to kill this bill. Now, the market. That's another one that's affected. When I went, that was fine.
Mr. Brindley, yes, sir, would you wrap up, please?
Okay. Real quick, it affects the market for sales. Okay, the nutrient law that the governor in, that impacts my market for sales because it adds all kind of burdens on top of the farmers who have over 8,000 pounds, you know, of any kind of livestock whatsoever. All right, and basically, in effect, this is nothing more than somebody trying to kill the farmers' property values, destroy their lives, the lives of their children, their grandchildren, and their great-grandchildren. And as far as I'm concerned, we need to fight this thing. And my thank you to the last council. You folks changed the law that gave this county the right to take away 31 foot of my land, 31 foot of my neighbor John Chadwell's land, and turn that over to a hiking club and give us no compensation. It took 10 years, but you guys did it. And you did it because it's in alignment with the Constitution of the United States. You need to bring Senate Bill 236 in alignment with that same Constitution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Ron Hamlin. I live in 9 Lock Heron Drive, that's in Elkin, Maryland. And I just want to make a couple of comments. You've heard a lot so far this evening. But the first comment I want to make is when I first looked at the submitted tier map, I had one thought. I was embarrassed. Because I thought, how could a map so far out of alignment with what SB 236 required be submitted? And then I started looking at some of the other maps that the previous commissioners had put together. And when I looked at map draft 4, and I compared it to the map that was submitted, it became very obvious what had happened. A significant amount of Tier 4 land had been heisted and classified as Tier 3. And we've already heard what that's going to mean. It can mean significant acreage will go into residential development, and probably all, if not most of that, will be on septic system. So the only thing I can conclude is that this decision to submit this map was without any regard for the impact on the bay. But one other point. The map, as it stands now, will undercut significantly development that we have targeted in the growth corridor. If we can build anywhere in the county, why would we want to build in the growth corridor? I would hope that our county will do a couple of things. One, they will take a broader vision of the use of our county land. And number two, they will abide by the state law. Because the last time I checked, Cecil County had not seceded from the state of Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Brian Coffey.
My name is Brian Coffey. I live in Fredericktown. Well, that's in Cecil County, but most people have no idea where that is. Quick. I think a lot of points have been, all the points have been made, I think, by now. Why not go back to the comprehensive plan as a good starting point? Makes sense to me. Most people seem to have agreed with that. It's a decent idea, at least to start with. Go from there. Two, somebody wants to fight the state law, probably not the best use for my tax money as far as I'm concerned, but I would encourage any individual who want to do it to go ahead. That's their right to do so. The last item was, in my mind, is maybe there's some good points made about cleaning up Septic systems, there are some rules that other states have used and other localities have used for maintaining your septic system and make it mandatory to pump them out free or whatever makes sense. Work on the pollution, go back to the comprehensive plan, don't waste tax money on fighting the state law. Those are my points.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
That is it.
Is there another clipboard with a few more names possibly? Has everyone that came to speak about the tier mapping spoken? Ron? I saw another hand in the back.
Ron Lobus, Elkton, Maryland. I hope that when this meeting is over, you gracefully walk over to Mr. Hall, shake his hand, and wish him the best of luck down in Annapolis. And I hope you ask him to address our governor and tell him that the sons and daughters of Cecil County don't need the help of our governor, that we're grown adults, that we can make our own decisions, and that we've made a lot of good decisions over the years. We don't need the state overruling what we do right now. I've heard two sides speak tonight. One were the conservationists, and I see them as very reputable and honorable, and the other side are the farmers. What I noticed is that the conservationists, and I consider myself also a conservationist because I want clean air and I want clean water, but I noticed the conservationists aren't offering to give up anything, but are willing to take the property rights of the farmers. The other side being the farmers, and they want to save their property rights. That's their wealth. Now, let's turn the tables around and let's say that everybody who considered themselves a conservationist like me, let's say that Governor O'Malley said all conservationists must give up 10% of their wealth in order to compensate the farmers for the property rights that we're going to take from them. Would anybody in here, would any of these people in here be willing to give 10% of their wealth to the farmers for what you're about to take away from them? I don't think so. This is not fair. Do you think Governor O'Malley would give up 10% of his wealth to give toward the farmers who are giving up their property rights?
Speak to the council, please.
So anyway, Mr. President, I would ask that when Mr. Hall leaves this evening, that you send a message back to Governor O'Malley that the sons and daughters of Cecil County do not need him to tell us what to do. Thank you very much.
I saw another hand in the back.
Stood up and my legs weren't working properly. I've been sitting down for a while. Josh Thompson, I'm the Ag Outreach Coordinator for Sassafras River Association. This is going to be very brief, but I just wanted to reiterate what George Kaplan said earlier and make sure there's a solid understanding of the just basic science surrounding septic systems and how they work. The first speaker said, and he took a quote out of context, out of an EPA paper, and said that a properly working septic system does not directly discharge to the surface water, which is absolutely correct. Obviously, if the system is working properly, there's not going to be septic material on the surface, and it's not going to directly wash off into the surface waters of the creek. It discharges indirectly through groundwater, so that it does not treat a normal non-DAT septic system does not address nitrogen, and it does move through shallow groundwater directly into the stream. The average properly operating septic system in the state of Maryland discharges approximately 25 pounds of nitrogen per year that actually makes it into the waterways. So to give you a kind of a scale, if you were to go to Lowe's, if you're a normal homeowner and buy 10 fertilizer, and you bought 10, or I guess it would be about 250 pounds of 10 fertilizer, walk down your creek and dumped it directly into the water. That's what's coming up off of every septic system in the water. So I just wanted to put that out there so you all understand how, just kind of clarify the point there, what the original speaker had said, And that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett?
Good evening, John Bennett, Elk Neck. One quick point I have not heard tonight. Whatever the council and Ms. Moore decide to do, I would hope that you would ask property owners that are affected by this whether or not they might consider voluntarily putting their land into Tier 4. I don't know that there's many people here that would do that. I would. It would be at least a start of meeting some of the requirements of SB 236. Thank you very much.
I saw one last hand, the gentleman right here. It's 10 o'clock, we need to cut it off. If you need to, you can stay for our regular meeting, and we will have a public comment, and you can speak at that time. So you're the last speaker in the public hearing tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge, for recognizing me. I apologize to everybody for the outburst that I had before, but I find it very insulting for somebody to stand up here and say, everybody is in agreement. Everybody is not in agreement. There's a lot of dissatisfaction here. And one of the things I want to say is, where's the honor, integrity, and honesty with this Bill 236? Everybody needs to get a copy of Agenda 21 and read it, especially in the back of the book with all the footnotes of where Bill 236 came from and all the treaties that have been made from the UN to the states for property rights, grabbing them and not living up to the Constitution of the United States. We talked about honesty, and I'll just bring this point up here. How can we believe the honesty and integrity of the state of Maryland and Governor O'Malley when, as an example, they raised the tolls on all the bridges and the highways in the state of Maryland, saying we need it for infrastructure. They didn't need it for infrastructure for the bridges, for Perryville down there, for 95, or Chesapeake Bay Bridge. They wanted to dump the money into the little railroad between Baltimore and DC. They took hundreds of millions of dollars out of the tolls and put it to another program. If they want to clean the bay up, like they've done, and they've stonewalled for years and years and years, clean the Susquehanna River up. And how can you possibly clean the bay up if Pennsylvania and New York are not going to clean up their land of all the water is a sewer coming down here? And as the first speaker said, the lawyer from, I'm not sure what his name was, for the facts and figures, and you have them there, it's probably 100 times one storm and all the water and pollutants coming down the river for what they want Cecil County to do. And the way I see all the red in there, it's really control. They want everything controlled in a certain corridor, all the people be in that certain corridor. 236, as Mr. Williams said, is probably illegal. And I think the legality of 236 should be thoroughly sought out rather than continue on with this. A lot of people spoke up and said, all these people have worked so hard on this plan. Well, how many people have worked so hard to determine the legality of this, whether we should even proceed further? And as a lot of people have said, the county has their own zoning and their people who have done all this. We don't need the state. You've got it here. All the state wants, 236, is control. Control over the county, control over the people. But where have they been when they should have been cleaning the bay up for how many years? And they haven't done it, and the pollutants still keep flowing. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you, for the record, would you give us your name and where you're...
My name is Gary Price, and I live at 173 McKinney Town Road.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes the public hearing on the Maryland Department of Planning comments for the tier mapping. I want to thank you all for coming. There was a lot of articulate and intelligent testimony. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Anyone that doesn't want to come to our council meeting can go home. Thank you.